They had some really close opportunities, so I don't know how much you would lay necessarily on the goaltending or on the defense. Obviously you can debate that, but let's start by position groups talking about the goaltending situation. You got Francois Tremblay, you got Pat Nagel. Nagel had a nice year last year in the ECHL, so where do they shape up? Who's going to be the number one goaltender, I should say?
Boy, you wonder if they're going to have the same problem they had last year, remember? Where they had John Muse and if he would have stayed, maybe things would have been completely different. And then after that, it was goalie roulette, trying to figure out who was going to step up. And right now, I would say Pat Nagel has the first chance to step up, but Francois Tremblay looked really good so far. So I have a feeling there could be a short leash on Pat Nagel to start with, and they'll go with Francois. And I have a feeling that could be a position where guys especially have to prove themselves right off the bat. I think they have more established forwards and more established defensemen, especially defense, than they do goaltenders right now, and they both have the opportunity to really step forward and make it their team. That
leads me into my next question, defensemen. We know last year they tried to get bigger. Tozzolino, a number of guys had the bodies, but it didn't turn out on the ice. Cody Soul is a guy, a 6'5", big physical guy. James Martin is a guy with some talent. Where do you see the defensemen shaping up at this point, and who are going to be some of the leaders on the blue line units?
They're not as big as last year, but I think they might be better overall. I look at Michael Tam, I look at James Martin, I look at Cody a little bit, I look at Drew Daniels. I think he's been outstanding in camp. Those 3-4 guys are all very, very good, and they could be almost an upgrade over what the Komets had last year. If you had Denny Papin and Jordan Southorn, and then it was kind of slipping a little. Will Lacoste is healthy, and I felt like he showed that in the exhibition games. He looked pretty good. He was hitting. He was aggressive. Sometimes when nobody else was, he was trying things. I'm really looking forward to seeing how the defense meshes and what the pairings end up being and that kind of thing, because I think there's a real chance for that to be the strength of the team.
Definitely more X factors and more variables as far as the defense goes. Read your article from earlier in the week about the lines. It looks like your first line, according to you, Sidlowski, Crowder, Mbach, and then you got Fye, Esposito, Ouellette. Obviously, Ouellette is starting on injury. But what have you seen from these lines, and how do you expect these offensive players to do? Because there are some familiar names, but definitely some new names that have some talent, like an Esposito.
It was really interesting to me. I wrote about Paul Crowder today and how he fits into that Aaron Clark spot on that line with Sidlowski and Mbach just perfectly. I mean, it's like they haven't missed a beat. Now, they didn't score a ton during exhibition games, but they sure had a lot of chances. And if you give Mbach and Sidlowski chances, you're going to be fine. And it's like, I'm not sure if Crowder's lost a face-off yet. It's been amazing watching him on the face-off. Now, the Ouellette, Fye, and Esposito and Fye are very similar players. They're big, fast, and really shifty. I mean, really have some moves. And I could see them really working well together. And Christian is more of the banger on that line, and he did a really good job at that. I want to see Christian, and I want to see him go the full year and see how good he can be at the end of the year, because I felt like he made a lot of progress last year, but it was a little inconsistent at times. If he can have more consistency, I think he's still got a shot to move up, because he plays bigger than he is.
See, that leads into my next question, because when you get to the playoffs, you need the guy in the middle. I don't know, is he on the roster? Is he Ouellette this year? And also, who's going to be the physical intimidator for this team this season? Is it Cody?
I think it's got to be more than one. I think it's got to be. It's got to be Kaylee. It's got to be Cody. It's got to be Krug. You've got several guys on this team. That's their role, and they need to embrace it. I think Ian Bartow's a big hitter, and he's a really big hitter on defense too. I've been impressed with him. You just got to have guys who are willing to throw the body consistently, and I kind of think that's part of what they went after this summer when I said they wanted to get bigger and a little meaner. And I've seen some of that in the training camp and stuff. I was really impressed with training camp in that, guys were competing. They were competing for jobs, but they were also competing against each other, which I haven't seen in a while. Not in the ECHL 2 years. I mean, guys were banging. They were playing hard. And that was kind of interesting to see.